We've all been there, haven't we? That moment in a yoga class where you suddenly realize, just holding still, being present with all your thoughts and feelings. It's actually way harder than any complicated pose.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to frame it. It's like the real yoga isn't just physical.
Exactly. It's navigating that constant shifting inner world, our emotions.
hmm And that speaks directly to what we're diving into today, finding balance in that, well, ever-changing emotional landscape. Our guide for this is Peter Marchand's book, The Yoga of the Nine Emotions, The Tantric Practice of Rasa Sadhana. It's based on the teachings of Harish Johari, who is just a remarkable figure.
Yeah, I saw that. A tantric scholar, but also a poet, musician, artist, quite the polymath.
Absolutely. And deeply knowledgeable about the wisdom of gems, too.
What's really interesting, though, is that Johari himself, who passed in 99, never wrote a specific book just on the rasas, despite all his other work.
That's right, which is where Peter Marchand comes in. He was a student of Johari's from way back, 1983, and he co-founded the Sanatan Society. So he's really taken up the mantle to bring these specific teachings on rasas to light.
And that word rasa, it's so evocative. It means taste, water, juice, or, the key one for us, essence.
Exactly, the very essence of emotion.
So what are these 9 core emotional essences the book lays out?
Okay, so the book identifies 9 principal rasas. First you have Shringara, that's the essence of love. Then Hasya, which is joy. Adbhuta, that's wonder. Shanta is calmness.
Okay.
Then there's Raudra, the essence of anger. Veerya, which is courage. Karuna, sadness. Bhayanaka is fear. And the last one is Vibhatsa, which represents disgust.
9 distinct essences. But it's not like they're just one single feeling each, is it?
No, that's a crucial point. Each rasa is really the essential quality, the core flavor, you could say, of a whole family of related emotions and moods.
Right, like you gave the example of wonder. Adbhuta, that single essence could show up as simple curiosity. Or maybe sheer astonishment, or even just a feeling of mystery about something.
Precisely. Or take fear, Bhayanaka. It's not just terror. It could be anxiety, nervousness, worry.
Mm.
That whole spectrum stems from the same core essence.
So these are like the deep currents running beneath the surface of our daily feelings. Okay, so the book introduces this practice called Rasa Sadhana. What's the core idea there?
Well, at its heart, Rasa Sadhana is a practice of emotional awareness and really regulation. You could almost think of it as emotional training. It has 2 key aspects. First, consciously choosing to sort of step back from or fast from the less desirable rasas.
Anger, fear, sadness, disgust,
They,
those ones.
exactly. And the second part is intentionally fasting on the more desirable ones. So cultivating calmness, love, joy, wonder, courage.
Okay, fasting from and fasting on. But it's not just about suppressing the negative ones when they pop up.
No, absolutely not suppression. It's more about observing them when they arise, getting curious about them, analyzing where they're coming from, and then using specific techniques, often involving the body, mindfulness, to help dissolve or release the energy of that rasa.
So I feel angry. Instead of just clamping down on it, I'd notice it, maybe figure out the trigger, and then actively do something to, like, let that intense energy go.
That's exactly the idea. It's a much more engaged process. And often, a key part of the sadhana is making a conscious promise to yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe for a day or a week, you commit to not getting swept away by, say, anger,
Ah, okay.
like setting an intention.
Yes, and that promise itself gives you willpower. The thinking is, if you find yourself breaking it, there's a kind of inner friction, which makes it easier to notice the emotions pull and choose to disengage.
Okay, now this is where it seems really practical.
Mm.
The book stresses this isn't some retreat-based practice. It's a yoga you live.
Right in the middle of everyday life. Designed for householders, people in modern society, without needing extra hours carved out. You just apply it as you go.
That's one of its most powerful aspects. It integrates into life rather than requiring you to withdraw from it.
So if we're diving into this book, what's the main thing you hope people take away about understanding and working with emotions through Rasa Sadhana?
I think the core insight really is that by understanding these fundamental emotional essences, the rasas, and by consciously practicing this kind of awareness and regulation, you gain a truly powerful set of tools. Tools for navigating life with, well, more balance, more agency, and ultimately more well-being. It's about shifting from being purely reactive to being more responsive in your emotional world.
Okay, responsive, not reactive. I like that. Let's dig a bit deeper into these 9 rasas then. You said they have variations. Can you give a few more examples?
Sure. Let's take Raudra. Anger. It's not
Yeah.
just full-blown rage, right? It could be that mild frustration when your Wi-Fi is slow.
Oh, I know that one.
Or, the irritation in a traffic jam, the stress of a looming deadline. All those are expressions of the core or rasa of anger.
Right. Different intensities, same root. And I was struck that three of them have these significant dual meanings mentioned.
Right.
Shringara isn't just love, it's also beauty. Viri is courage, but also heroism or determination. And Shanta is calmness, but also peace, relaxation, rest. What's the significance there?
Well, it points to how interconnected these states really are. The link between love and beauty, for example, suggests our capacity for connection is tied to our aesthetic appreciation.
Okay.
Virya covering both outer courage and inner resolve, it shows that same strength manifesting differently.
Hmm.
And Shanta's range from deep peace to simple relaxation reminds us that calmness isn't always some huge spiritual achievement. It's also in quiet moments.
Hmm.
And the Sanskrit terms themselves, Shringara, Hasya, Adbhuta, and so on, they carry these rich layers of meaning within the whole philosophical tradition. They hint at these deeper connections.
Okay, so these rasas are the emotional building blocks. Now, the book talks quite a bit about the body-mind connection. How do the rasas actually affect us, physically and mentally, when they stick around for a bit?
Well, when a rasa really takes hold, it's energy,
Hmm.
its signature. It impacts both how we feel physically and our mental state. Indian philosophy has a very detailed framework for this. It looks at the interplay between the rasas and our mind, which they call manas, or intellect, or buddhi, the ego, or ahamkara, and our deeper consciousness, the self, or atman.
Right.
Each rasa is thought to correlate with specific psychological patterns and even, subtle biochemical changes in the body.
We definitely feel that, don't we? Like anxiety, a type of fear showing up as a racing heart or tense shoulders.
Exactly. That's the visceral experience of it. And ancient wisdom suggests this is a direct two-way street between our emotions and our internal physical environment.
And you mentioned subrasas as well.
Yes. Just like there are families of emotions under each main rasa, there are even finer nuances within those subrasas, adding more subtle shades. And what's also fascinating is how the rasas interact. They aren't isolated silos.
Ah,
They have relationships, harmony, conflict, neutrality. So, consciously cultivating one rasa can actually influence others. Feeling joy, hasya, might make it easier to feel love, shringara, for instance.
interesting. Like an internal emotional ecosystem.
Mm.
Understanding those relationships could be really useful for shifting things intentionally. Okay, let's get back to the practical side, Rasa Sadhana. How do we actually do that fasting from the less desirable ones?
The key, again, is mindful awareness and analysis, not suppression.
Yeah.
So when anger, say, pops up, the practice is to step back, observe it without judging yourself for feeling it, like a neutral witness,
Right.
and try to see, okay, what's the trigger here? What underlying need isn't being met? That promise you made in the sadhana helps create the mental space for this. And then the book offers techniques, often involving bringing awareness to body sensations, breath, to help dissipate that intense energy. By engaging with it consciously, not just being swept away, you start to see these feelings don't have to run the show.
And the flip side, fasting on the good ones. How do we actively cultivate calmness or joy?
That involves consciously directing your attention and energy towards things that evoke those states. It could mean setting aside specific time for activities you genuinely find joyful, or spending quality time with people you love to nurture Shringara.
Or maybe going for a walk in nature for wonder.
Exactly. Or practicing meditation for calmness. By deliberately focusing on these positive rasas, you strengthen the neural pathways for them, making them more accessible. The idea is, as you get better at navigating the difficult emotions, you naturally clear space for the happier ones to bloom, like weeding a garden.
Makes sense. You mentioned the book touches on CD's special powers, potentially arising from this practice.
Yes, the tradition does suggest that with sustained, dedicated practice, Rasa Sadhana might unlock certain extraordinary abilities or insights known as siddhis. These are usually seen as natural byproducts of deep inner transformation and mastery over one's own energy, potentially linked to the specific rasas being mastered.
Okay, interesting. But going back to the everyday person,
Mhm.
you stressed it's for the householder, integrated into life. How is that different from the classic spiritual idea of detachment?
That's a really important distinction. Rasa sadhana isn't about withdrawing from the world or trying to become numb.
Right.
It's about cultivating inner resilience while staying fully engaged with life's ups and downs. The book puts it nicely. The real test of your practice is your inner state, not whether you're in a cave or a city. True mastery isn't avoiding difficult feelings. It's maintaining your inner balance amidst them. And a real saint, it suggests, can navigate all 9 rasas with wisdom, not just cling to calmness.
That's a powerful reframe. Not emotional avoidance, but integration and understanding of the whole spectrum. Okay, let's talk connections. How do the rasas link to things like the 5 elements?
Well, in Hindu philosophy, everything tangible comes from 5 basic elements:
Mhm.
earth, water, fire, air, and akasha ether, or space. These are deeply connected to the rasas. Water, for example, is seen as the primary element for all rasas, representing flow, emotion itself. And
Interesting.
there's an interplay. It's thought that water, air, and fire are present in varying proportions in different rasas, highlighting their interconnectedness.
And how do the doshas fit in Vata, Pitta, Kapha from Ayurveda?
The dosas are basically how those 5 elements manifest in us, in our individual bodies. So Ayurveda uses this understanding to see how rasas affect our personal constitution, our health, our tendencies. They're also the subtle essences of the doshas: prana, life force; tehas, radiance, intellect; and ohas, vitality, resilience. When these are balanced, it supports fearlessness and joy.
And the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, where do they come in?
The gunas are like the 3 fundamental qualities woven through everything. Sattva is purity, balance; rajas is activity, passion; tamas is inertia, darkness. Each rasa tends to have a dominant guna. Joy, hasya, is often seen as active, expressive.
Okay.
But it's not rigid. You can have variations. A quiet, content joy might lean more sattvic, while wild excitement is strongly rajasic. It adds another layer of understanding.
It's this amazing web, isn't it? Elements, doshas, gunas, all interacting with our emotional rasas, a very holistic view. And the book emphasizes food and senses as key channels affecting rasas.
Absolutely crucial. What we take in through eating, seeing, hearing, etc., directly impacts our emotional state via the body. With food, it's not just the initial taste. Ayurveda looks at its energy during digestion,
Hmm.
Veerya, and its post-digestive effect, Vibhatsa. These affect the doshas, which then influence the rasas.
Wow.
And understanding the gunas helps us use food and senses deliberately. Feeling fearful, a tamasic state, maybe pungent, stimulating rajasic foods, could help shift that energy towards courage. Feeling angry, which is rajasic, perhaps listening to calming sattvic music could soothe it. Even a calm sattvic state can be thrown off by too much rajasic sugar or tamasic heavy food.
So it's about conscious choices based on how we're feeling.
Yes, and the book also mentions prana, the life force in our breath, as vital for both experiencing and regulating the rasas.
Okay, so incredibly interconnected. Now, let's switch gears slightly. The book also brings in Western brain science. How does it connect that?
Yes, it does a nice job bridging the ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. It talks about the roles of different brain parts: the forebrain cortex, thalamus, hypothalamus, the limbic system, especially the amygdala, in handling emotions.
The usual suspects in emotion regulation.
Right, and it mentions the different leanings of the left hemisphere: more logic, analysis, and the right hemisphere, more emotion, intuition, though they work together, of course.
And neurotransmitters,
Yeah.
the chemical messengers.
Exactly. It discusses neurotransmitters and other information molecules, as it calls them, and how they carry emotional information throughout the entire body. It really emphasizes that we sense and feel with our whole being, not just specific organs in our head, thanks to these traveling messengers.
That's a key point. It's a whole body experience.
And it connects food back to this, explaining how taste and digestion directly affect these information molecules, influencing our mood. It even mentions the enteric nervous system.
The second brain in the gut.
Precisely, showing that gut feeling is quite literal sometimes.
So what we eat profoundly impacts how we feel chemically. And the book mentioned brain patterns, too.
Yes, it touches on neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, how our repeated experiences create neural pathways, our sort of default emotional reactions. And crucially, these brain patterns have biochemical echoes throughout the body via those information molecules. So practices like Rasa Sadhana can literally help us build new, healthier pathways. Reprogramming isn't just a metaphor, it's something the brain is always doing.
That's incredibly hopeful, isn't it? We're not just stuck with old patterns. We can actually change. Okay, let's loop back to the philosophy. The self and the ego. How do they relate to the rasas?
Well, the Hindu model uses the 5 koshas, or sheaths. The Manomaya kosha, the mental sheath, is key for emotions like love, Shringara. The Vijnanamaya kosha, the wisdom sheath containing ego and intellect, is particularly relevant for understanding anger, Raudra. The others are the physical body, Annamaya; the energy body, Pranamaya; and the bliss body, Anandamaya. They form the whole picture.
And the self, Atman, within that.
The self is described as our core, pure, unchanging consciousness. It's inherently bliss, truth, our divine spark, you might say. The Shiva-Shakti analogy helps. Shiva is the still unchanging self, Shakti as the dynamic changing world of energy and phenomena, including emotions.
Okay. And the ego's role.
The ego ahamkara is the tool of consciousness that creates the sense of, I am this separate person. It identifies with the body, personality, manages relationships. The intellect, buddhi, is memory, plus the ability to reason and conclude.
So the ego gives us individuality. How does the mind, with all its chatter, fit in?
The mind, with its constant thoughts and those information molecules, is often seen as a major hurdle to clear thinking and inner quiet. Prana, doshas, rasas, they all play out in the mind. And the ego acts like a gatekeeper, using willpower to influence how we engage with these energies. Interestingly, the book notes that too much ego involvement actually dilutes the purity of good feelings like joy or calmness.
Ah, like the moment you think, wow, I am so calm, it changes the experience slightly.
Exactly. Purest calmness, Shanta, is said to happen when the mind, ego, intellect are quiet, like in deep meditation, samadhi.
That makes total sense. Okay, practical application time. What are some general principles from Rasa Sadhana for mastering emotions that we can actually use?
A really foundational one is realizing that feeling good or bad isn't just random. It's largely a matter of choice, based on our internal state and responses. The book suggests a simple three-step process for immediate change when an unwanted rasa hits.
Okay, what are the steps?
1. Stop identifying with the rasa. Just acknowledge it. Okay, anger is present.
Yeah.
2. Immediately do something to change your body chemistry.
Like deep breaths or splashing water on your face.
Yes, things like that. Maybe change your posture. And 3, shift your thoughts and actions. Consciously focus on something different, something neutral or positive, or do a different activity.
Stop identifying, change chemistry, shift thoughts, actions. Very concrete. What about the longer view?
The book really advocates for Rasa Sadhana as a lifelong practice. Making it a permanent part of how you approach life yields the deepest benefits. And it constantly circles back to sensory input, how what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch affects those information molecules and thus our emotions.
Right, like soothing sounds, boosting serotonin, jarring noise, increasing adrenaline.
Exactly. It also flags how lack of concentration, that scattered feeling we get, leads to confusion and negative moods. Modern life bombards us, which can feed into addiction as we seek ways to cope.
So mindfulness about sensory intake is key. You mentioned sound being particularly powerful.
Yes, sound is described as maybe the most potent sense for influencing rasas. Its vibrations affect all 5 elements and neurotransmitters directly. It can evoke and release deep emotions.
Music's power, for instance.
Both calming and stressful sounds, and how memory ties into music's effect. Touch has also highlighted physical contact, boosting good neurochemicals. Hugs, not drugs, as they say.
Oh, yes.
And briefly, sight, colors, nature, taste, the 6 Ayurvedic tastes, and smell, direct link to the amygdala, all play their parts.
It really covers all the senses. And food again.
Yes, from the Ayurvedic angle balancing gunas, doshas, tastes in our diet for emotional stability. It also mentions mood foods, but cautions against relying on them too much.
Right, that could undermine our natural ability to find a balance.
Exactly, leading to dependency. It also touches on daily rhythms, benefits of early rising, routines at transitions like dusk, the value of hobbies for relaxation, and avoiding daytime sleep. And ultimately, mastering thoughts is key, even if you start by controlling words and actions. It stresses again. This isn't suppression, it's gaining conscious control.
A very holistic, integrated system. Now, the book also branches out, looking at rasas in different contexts, like the arts.
Yes, briefly. It notes how rasas have been central to Indian arts, dance, music, drama for centuries. Studied through posture, eyes, hand mudras. It distinguishes bhava, the emotion the artist portrays, from rasa, the feeling evoked in the audience.
Ah, okay.
And traditionally, the goal wasn't just realism, but to elevate the audience, convey deeper feelings, often religious or spiritual. Even when showing negative rasas, the overall aim was usually upliftment or understanding.
So art as a tool for emotional and spiritual development. What about society?
It briefly touches on social work, combining practical help with fostering positive rasas and spiritual knowledge. And politics, suggesting society should meet basic needs and promote agreeable rasas, while warning politicians against abusing fear or anger for power.
A very relevant warning.
Indeed. It mentions mood marketing and advertising, how emotions are used to sell things, sometimes based on shaky science, cautioning against buying into the idea that products equal happiness. It also sees potential for Rasa Sadhana principles in therapy for emotional issues, tailored to the person, emphasizing finding inner balance, and links Rasa Yoga to the life stages, the main yoga paths, Bhakti, Karma, Jnana, specific practices like asana and pranayama, and the ethics of yama and yama. It notes connections to Ayurveda, gemology, and concludes by pointing out how modern science, with people like Candace Pert or Daniel Goleman, is increasingly validating this mind-body-emotion connection, suggesting more research into rasa biochemistry, food effects, etc.
It's amazing how this ancient system connects to so many areas: art, society, therapy, modern science. Really comprehensive.
Absolutely. It provides such a rich lens for understanding our inner lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the absolute core message you'd want listeners to take away from exploring Rasa Satana?
I think the most fundamental thing is this. Understanding our rasas gives us power. The power to choose, more consciously, how we feel. We don't have to be just swept along by emotions. We can actively engage, cultivate well-being. Feeling good isn't just luck. It's actually a skill we can learn and practice.
A learnable skill, not about aiming for constant happiness, which isn't realistic, but developing the skill to navigate the whole range of human feeling with more awareness.
Precisely that. Recognizing our potential for emotional resilience and taking ownership of our inner world.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. What if feeling chronically unhappy isn't just a symptom, but maybe a root cause of many kinds of disease, physical and mental? Thinking about it that way could really shift how we value and prioritize emotional well-being, couldn't it? Both personally and as a society. We really encourage you to check out the book, The Yoga of the Nine Emotions, if this sparked your interest, and maybe even try out some Rasa Satana principles yourself.
And for anyone wanting to learn more, Peter Marchand's website is www.rasas.info. There are also the Sanat Society websites, www.sanatandsociety.com and .org. Lots of resources there on Rasa Sadhana, Indian art, yoga, and related topics.